Hi there, this is Amy Carter with Gerrie Electric, and this is part 1 in a video series on Integrated Architecture Builder. So I wanted to start off a little bit about where to find Integrated Architecture Builder, what it is, and how you use it. So if we start off here on the Rockwell Automation website, under Product Selection and Configuration, we'll scroll down here to Integrated Architecture Builder, and it's part of the Product Selection Toolbox. So you need to click on Product Selection Toolbox and you'll see the download populates here in my browser window. You would wait for the install file to download and then run it. I've already got it installed, so I'm going to flip on over to where I have Integrated Architecture Builder already open. So Integrated Architecture Builder opens with this splash screen where you have a few options to create a new project, open an existing project, or explore, go through release notes, or as well as some online videos and labs to get you started. So I'm going to create a new project here. It's going to auto-populate with the default name, and I'm going to change this to our video demo. And click OK. So what's going to start here is a blank space, and I have the option to run some of these wizards. So you could take a look at Project Design Assistant. You would use the Project Design Assistant if you didn't know which hardware to already use. So if you're unsure of whether a ControlLogix, a CompactLogix, or a MicroLogix processor was best suited to your application, you'd start with the Project Design wizard. You would input your requirements for chassis-based I/O versus distributed I/O, and it would let you know the controller best suited to the application. If you know you need to use a ControlLogix processor for your application, you can run this wizard, and the same thing, you'll give it an I/O count for chassis-based and distributed, and it will generate the part number and bill of materials for you. And the same for CompactLogix and the Micro 800 series. You can use the distributed I/O wizard to generate your part numbers and bill of materials for the distributed I/O you need for your application. You can use the Plant PAX wizard and generate your bill of materials and also help size your system, as well as 1771 or PLC5 migration, a SLIC migration, distributed I/O, and a MicroLogix migration. So I'm going to start off this wizard with the Project Design Assistant. So you can see here you have the option of choosing different products and requirements for your application. So I'm going to start off with something simple. I'm going to choose, let's say, 16 digital inputs and outputs, and 8 analog inputs and outputs. For distributed I/O, I'm going to change it to 16 digital inputs and 16 digital outputs as well. You can see here for distributed I/O, I have the choice to choose between the different I/O platforms available. I'm going to leave this set at Point.io for right now. And as well, you have the option to add other devices into your system, operator interfaces like panel views, as well as drives and IPCs. So I'm going to click on Next, and Integrated Architecture Builder is going to take the information I entered on this screen and bring it forward. The next screen is the controller analysis. So what you can see here is based on the input and output requirements for chassis and distributed I/O that I inputted on the previous screen, these are the controller families available. So I'm going to click here at the bottom of the screen on Perform Analysis, and what this is going to do is take a look at these different controller families and test the system performance. So when that's completed, you can see we've got an estimated list price for all of my hardware, as well as an overview of the system. So this is green, indicating the system was successfully created with no performance warning or errors. If there's a chance that the controller family or processor selected might not be able to handle the task or I/O counts that you selected on the previous screen, this icon would turn yellow, and if you're past the limitations of that controller, it will turn red. So we can see here we've got a green light and an OK level of system performance with any of these choices. So of these 6 controller families, you now have to decide which one to go with. Are you dealing with specifications and you're limited to a certain type of controller? Are you integrating into an existing system and you want to stick with ControlLogix or CompactLogix in that family? Or are there different features where you'd want to use the newest processor? So I'm going to go ahead and choose the new CompactLogix from the bottom of the screen here. So that's the CompactLogix 5380. You can see I also have a drop-down menu here. So the wizard had automatically chosen the smallest controller for me based on my low I/O counts in the system. If I know that there's going to be more and I'm possibly going to be adding on in the future, I can choose to change my controller part number from this screen. If you do change the controller part number from this screen, you'll notice my price and my system performance has disappeared. You're going to need to repeat the analysis on the system. So this has been updated. I've got a new price and an OK green light for my system performance. So when you've narrowed down your choice and you have one option selected, you can see this button has changed to Generate Hardware/Networks. So I'm going to click on that button, and Integrated Architecture Builder is going to automatically select my controller and my distributed I/O hardware for me. When I click OK, it's going to close the wizard for me, and I now have the option to look at my hardware. I'm going to use this opportunity to quickly go over the different areas of Integrated Architecture Builder. We started off this project in the wizard view, which is also this tab down here. I'm going to expand our workspace here on the left, and this is where we'll have the option to go through the different levels of hardware and networks as we switch to the other tabs. So you can see down here we've got a tab for on-machine I/O, our network, our hardware, our physical architecture, IAB bookshelf, where you can find documentation and manuals on the devices in this system. So I'm going to head over to our hardware tab and just minimize this workspace area. And you can see these two objects were created by my Project Design Assistant, PDA. So if I open these up, we'll see it's given me the 5069 chassis, which is our new Compact Logix controller, as well as the 1734 chassis, which is our Point I/O. The I/O that I had spec'd in my Project Design Assistant was 16 digital inputs and outputs, as well as 8 analog inputs and outputs. And for my distributed I/O, I had selected 16 digital inputs and 16 digital outputs. So the correct cards have been added to the Point I/O module for me. You can see down at the bottom of the screen, this network icon is indicating where the Ethernet port on my Compact Logix is connected to. So it's connected to Manage 001. And when I click on my Point I/O block, it's also connected to Manage 001. Down here in my workspace, if I click on our Network tab, I'm just going to zoom in here, you'll see that the Project Design Assistant already went ahead and added a managed switch into my network. So my Compact Logix and my Point I/O hardware are networked together. Changing the layout of these Ethernet networks, changing out hardware, and finessing the network side of things will be covered in a later video. So if this is it for my application, I'm going to be using the Compact Logix and the Point I/O. The next step is to do the Project Completeness wizard. So I'm going to navigate to the top of the screen here and click on this little icon. So you can see here we've got some red X's, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how to get rid of those. So I'll start off with the Software wizard. You can see here there's some feedback in the Details panel where it says no items have been added to your project from the Software wizard. So I'm going to open this up and go by Browse Catalog. So I'm going to need Studio 5000 to program my Compact Logix. So I can open this up and go ahead and add Studio 5000 to my bill of materials. Closing that window will give me a green check mark here on my Software wizard. In terms of control and field power, clicking on that will indicate that I don't currently have a power supply for my Compact Logix processor. So if I note that I've got single phase power coming into my system, I'm just going to go ahead and add this power supply here. The same thing for my field power, and this is going to be the power distributed to my input and output devices. So I'm going to go ahead and add a single phase power supply here as well. So you can see we've got some green check marks in every section. If you'd like to go ahead and use the CYA wizard, this is where you can add input and output components to your system. So I'm going to add a few push buttons and some pilot lights. Okay, I've got green check marks in every section of my project add-ons, and if I go to my project checker, you'll be able to see every aspect of my system and my networks has a green check mark. That's a great sign, as well as down here it tells me no errors have been detected. So at this point, I've used Integrated Architecture Builder's Project Design Assistant to help me choose the correct hardware for my system based on my I/O count, as well as to verify that my network and my field and device power specifications are up to spec. Now I have a few options to use this file that I've created. If I go and click on File, you'll see I have the option to export to XML, ProposalWorks, Architect, ePlan, or create a project BOM. I'm going to create my bill of materials. So you can see here from the networking side, it's added in my Ethernet switch, as well as patch cords to go from my PLC to the switch and the switch to my distributed I/O. For my PLC, it's added in those additional part numbers for me, things like the end cap and the removable terminal blocks for the I/O cards. The same for my point I/O. It's given me a power supply, the Ethernet adapter, and my I/O modules and terminals. The software that I added through the software selection wizard is now in my bill of materials, as well as the input and output devices I selected in the CYA wizard, and finally the power supplies that I selected in my control and field power device wizards. I can now take this list and save it as an Excel file to an XML or go ahead and print it from Integrated Architecture Builder. So now with this file you created, you can go ahead and export it into other software platforms. I'm going to cover exporting this into Studio 5000 Architect in another video. So that's it on this quick introduction to Integrated Architecture Builder. This was Amy Carter with Gerrie Electric.